Unlock the power of AI in marketing with our new series, AI Agent. Dive into the world of SaaS tools, discover how marketing pros deploy bots, and explore the best use cases for AI in your marketing strategy. Only on Marketing in the Age of AI podcast with Emanuel Rose.
Welcome to this episode of Marketing in the Age of AI. We're going to get into some AI storytelling and ideation and innovation, and maybe even a little deep psychology conversation today with my guest, Mona Bavar, who is an entrepreneur and cultural innovator, redefining how businesses merge creativity, storytelling, and technology. As the founder of BlueApples.ai, she helps leaders and entrepreneurs harness the power of AI to amplify creativity, drive growth, and maintain their unique voice. Through Delish, Mona curates multisensory experiences and luxury gifting, bridging cultures and creating connections through meaningful stories. Her work blends timeless wisdom with modern tools, empowering leaders to navigate the future with authenticity and vision. Wow, that's my kind of bio right there, Mona. It's so great to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Emanuel. It's really nice to be on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate your time. And I'm interested to know how or what drove you into digging into AI and making sure that you knew about it.
Well, as you had mentioned, I have another business, which is a gifting company that I started in 2019. And what happened is when AI came into the market and everyone started talking about ChatGPT, about 2 years ago, I started to use it to create content. So we can say essentially that it comes out of necessity because as a startup or as any and most entrepreneurs know, there's always that element of bootstrapping.
Sure.
So we're always looking for ways that we can save money while competing in a very, very saturated market.
Yeah, well, that is, so you went to ChatGPT, and then what did you discover as you started your AI journey?
Initially, I think the beauty of it was that it was it wasn't so used. So it was very rare that you would speak to someone and they say, "Oh yeah, I'm using ChatGPT to write a blog." And
Right.
I remember the first time I used ChatGPT to write a blog, I had to do a lot of it myself still. So
Right.
it wasn't like I could sit and say, "Do this for me." And to this day, because there was that element of organic and LLM language that went in, that blog is the highest ranking blog that we have to this
Wow.
day. And this is about 2 years after.
Right.
So I think it just started as a way of having fun and seeing how far you could push it. And as ChatGPT, now we're just going to go forward with ChatGPT, but we all know that there's many other LLMs out there. But
Sure.
as ChatGPT started to uh, grow and advance, the possibilities became endless. And to this day, the way we use it and the agency that we founded with a couple of friends who are also entrepreneurs, it's showing other startups how they can, or companies, how they can implement AI. You see that it is so helpful in so many different ways.
Yeah. And so, what are some of the ways that you're using it in your businesses?
Um, Definitely for content, as you know, uh, marketing strategies, ideation, planning, uh, um, in a way, also our numbers. So you put in the numbers and it gives you the spreadsheet forecasting. Uh, the most important way I see it is how it's helped us for my gifting company, for example, to become much more creative.
Mm.
Before you have to understand, when I started in 2019, my revenue that was going out, my costs were over $10,000 a month.
Okay.
So you say all of that is going to people. So you bring in designers in order for them to help you come up with ideas, or you bring in SEO optimizers, you bring in marketers, digital marketing, all this stuff that you have to have in your little bag of growing a business.
Yep.
We were doing. But now I see that and I never imagined that I was a creative. But as I see with my time opening up, and the ways that I'm using ChatGPT creatively, it's enhancing my creativity at the same time.
Right.
And I think most people that are using it, and I'm sure you're one of those people that have been using it for a long time and continue to use it, finding ways that it can enhance, you'll see that our creativity, without us even knowing maybe or being aware of it, it's automatically being amplified. And I think that's one of the most important things that we need to think about.
Yeah, it kind of triggers me to think about how, especially if you have a custom GPT or you're in a long conversation over months in a certain thread, that the LLM is learning about you and learning about the market and is dynamically learning the same way you're learning to speak with more clarity in order to get the outcomes that you want.
Exactly, exactly. One of the most important things is like the one of the services that we offer, and I think it's one that people will need and should have, is how to write your brand story using AI, but not losing your authentic voice.
Right.
And now, because I've been working with ChatGPT for so long, I just go in and I say, use Mona's voice.
Right.
This is Mona. I don't
Right.
even have to describe it anymore to say this is the tone of voice I want. It
Yeah.
understand I mean, it's in a way, it's like exciting because it understands my mood. It understands where my target is. So if it's a LinkedIn caption, or if it's an Instagram caption, or if it's me writing an email, it understands it. And then based on that, when I say use Mona's tone, it writes it. And I mean, but we have to not forget that in all this time, I've been inputting ChatGPT like a recipe.
Right. Yep. Yeah, and then of course you're still staying in the loop and proofing and adding more direction each time that it produces something that is out of line with your brand voice.
Exactly.
So yeah,
Exactly.
that's the other critical part too that people got to remember is the keeping the human in the loop and not just turning the AI loose.
Exactly. Because, Manuel, as you know, where I think this year they were saying there was 4 billion amount of content out there that's being generated. And by the end of this year, we may reach up to 8 to 10 billion, which means now everybody is sitting in front of their chat GPT saying, write me a blog.
Right.
But you're just becoming another one of these voices that's out there sounding generic, using the same keywords that your competitors are using. So how are you differentiating yourself? And I think that's the most important role that you and I as marketers, or helping companies implement AI in an effective way, are taking into consideration. And that's what's going to differentiate your competitor from you, who is anyway, everybody's using AI. If
Yeah,
they're not, they will be.
for sure.
But the only way that we're going to differentiate this whole thing is if we sit down and say, you know what, let's do the work that we should have done years ago and
Right.
understand what your brand is, because
Yeah.
otherwise you won't have the emotional connection.
That's true. Another thing is just exactly what we're doing here, having this podcast. It's another beautiful way for people who have not written books or are not prolific writers to get brand voice and subject matter expertise published, and then be able to reference it in the LLMs.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, explain one of the deployments you've had with a client that was remarkable that you found fun.
One of the what?
Deployments, AI deployments, yeah, projects.
So one of the most recent ones that we're actually working on it right now. She's a fashion brand. And her whole idea, which I think is fantastic, because today it's very rare for someone to be so bold as to say, you know what, I don't want a website. I don't want to be on social media. I'm just going to work with my network and exclusivity for her fashion line.
Uh-huh.
And I said, okay, and we have these workshops where we do half a day or full day. We come in and we train you. And she's a solopreneur. So she said to me, Mona, I want you to come in and I want you to train me. So I went, and she's in London, and we sat down together and I took her through it. And it was amazing for both me and for herself to understand how to actually position herself so that she can utilize and take full advantage of the fact that she's going to be such an exclusive brand.
Right.
One thing is you have your network and you have your circle that you are running with, that so you say, okay, they're going to come and buy it anyway. But it's another thing where it says to you, let's sit down, and you say, I want to do this all exclusive. And it says, okay, that's fine. But make sure you invest heavily in a lookbook. And the lookbook has to be based on a narrative.
Yeah.
Where do we put our money? We say, okay, you know what? You have to invest X amount in this lookbook. And she said, okay, I really like poetry. And I said, okay. And one thing that I've been doing for my gifting company, every time I put out a gift box, I have chat write me a poem. Of course,
Nice.
I give its guideline.
Yep.
I'm hoping to one day publish all these collection of poetry. And she said, I want a poem. So I said, okay, let's do it. Give me just some keywords and I'll show you how to prompt it. And then we started to play with it. And at the end, for her lookbook, we produced this unique poem that is so special, and it put her to tears, having worked on her brand
Amazing.
story, having said what it comes out to. But it's these little things that you say, okay, this is how I'm going to differentiate myself from the millions of different fashion brands that are out there. I'm
Yeah.
not even talking about the established ones. I'm talking about all these ones that are startups.
Sure.
Where you say, okay, let's find ways that when the person comes to your events and you're showing your clothing, and they're going to go look through the lookbook or walk away with a little booklet, there's something special. And
Yeah.
that, who would ever say that that special human touch where it's going to connect on an emotional level is being created by AI?
Yeah, that's amazing. Especially some poetry, but that would be a fun prompting series to be part of. The uh, the poetry ideation and prompting workshop.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I love it. I love the title. We should do it together, Emanuel.
Yeah, I love it. That is, I do enjoy poetry too, all the way back from my sophomore year of high school English class. So
When we were reading, when we were really reading poetry like E. E. Cummings or
yeah, Walt Whitman and the Transcendentalists. That was the one that finally turned me on to poetry. Oh, that's funny. Well, let's see. So then, what projects are you working on, or what are you envisioning for the short term future? What are you going to be able to leverage?
so like I had mentioned earlier, this aspect of creativity and bringing different hats. So we all wear these different hats, or we have these things that we love in our lives. So you just mentioned a Walt Whitman poetry, or the fact that you love poetry. And when you sit down and you actually have fun and you let loose and you say, you know what, it's not a perfect world, so let's be imperfect. A lot of things come to life. And I remember as a child, I always loved psychology, or this idea of understanding why we behave the way we behave.
Sure.
And as I went to high school and college, I was exposed to psychology classes and Jungian psychology and the archetypes. And I always loved it. And I loved the way that it came together. And then this esoteric world that he always dove into. And so what I sat down one day last year. I'm a part of this female entrepreneurial group. And the business mentor there, she asked me, she said, Mona, will you do a monthly archetype that you love to talk about so much and you share with everyone? But for our group, will you do a monthly one? And I said, yeah, of course. And I don't know if you or your listeners know, but Carl Jung came up with the archetypes. They've been around forever, but he came up with a way to apply them to the psyche, to our
Right.
different personas. And he, at some point in his career, he used the tarot deck.
Right.
So I said, okay, I'm going to use the tarot and I'm going to apply it for every month. And then on this, apply it to this entrepreneurial journey that we're all going to. So this was back in 2000, last year, not 2020, 2024. Yes. And I started to use ChatGPT. So I would say, you know what, based on the fact that this month is the hermit, for
Right.
example, the hermit
Yeah.
archetype, apply it to business and give me prompts so that the women who are hearing this can then go away and do some work in order for them to during this month of the hermit to have this kind of like interaction engagement with the hermit archetype.
Love it.
And then so this year for 2025 what I did is put together a guide that is about the archetypes and exercises that you do, prompts that have been designed so that every month when you sit down and there's archetypes of the month, and you reflect and you play with ChatGPT and you say, look, listen, these are the prompts I was given. Let's go through it. And you say, okay, you know what? This month, February, for example, is the intuitive strategist. So what does that mean? It's the high priestess in the tarot. So let's go through and in this, it's about each month is about 30 to 40 pages. You go through these questions or these prompts and you play with that archetype that is within all of us.
Right.
Say, how can I either enhance it or how can I apply it to different aspects of both my personal life as well as my professional life? And I think I've always said this for myself that the reason I chose the journey of an entrepreneur or this route is because there's so much self-worth work, inner work, this inner development, growth that goes on that
Yeah.
we maybe ignore because we're so busy looking at our numbers to see, did we make the sales? Did we get the followers? Did we have the reach? Are we breaking even? Are we in net profits? All this, all the numbers that play with us that are determinants of success, which they are, but we must, at some point when we reflect, we say, oh, 2 years ago, if someone would say no to me about a gift box or a corporation would say, you know what, we don't want you this year, I would take it to heart.
Right.
Because
Personally. Yeah.
exactly, because you say it's a rejection.
Right.
But now, after you do the work and you go through these obstacles and these phases of this entrepreneurial journey, you say, you know what? It's not about me. It's fine. Either they don't have the budget, they're not interested, whatever it is. Let me go on.
Right.
And so you become more confident. You become more stable, more grounded. And then it's about how you're implementing and you're wearing these different hats or archetypes at different phases of your journey. And then the objective is after 12 months with this guide, when you're looking back at it in December and you reflect on all of them, you say, wow, I never knew I was a visionary. I never knew that I was so good at strategy or I could be so good.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of it. And Harry, we've done it all with AI.
Yeah. That's cool. I think you've kind of created a really interesting coaching program for new entrepreneurs.
There you go. And I had no idea I had that in me.
Yeah, right. Well, that's a super creative way to use use that tool and combine your interest and creativity with the AI, and then get a product that's very useful. That's pretty amazing.
Thank you. I love it. I'm very,
Yeah,
very, very proud of it.
yeah, that's awesome. And I'm sure the women in that group love it also.
Yes, yes. All of them went and bought for this year, they bought the guide.
All right, there you go. Well, let's see. Last question is: are you a single LLM user? You just use chat, or do you spread it around a little bit?
No, I have to say I'm very loyal to chat. And
Okay.
without us knowing, I think we create this bond. But I do realize that there's a lot of different platforms out there. I'm not one of those that feeds into the Instagram influencers or the people that are saying, you know what, try this for that, try this for that.
Right.
I use Midjourney. I do use Runway. I use Gemini because I think
Yeah.
it's a great source for research, especially for SEO and keywords. and I use Claude because it's great for creating diagrams and understanding the flow.
Yeah.
But my go-to is ChatGPT. And I think it's absolutely fine that it is, but you have to, and like I say, the more you start to know yourself, the better you are going to be at how you use AI as well, because you don't want to lose that human touch, because the antithesis of AI is human connection.
Right.
And as brands, if we lose that, if we lose our audience because we don't sound authentic, or because on an emotional level we're not able to connect with them anymore,
Yeah.
then what's the purpose? We just
Yeah.
become one of thousands and millions, maybe even, of brands that are out there that are doing the same thing that we're doing. So there always has to be that, it's a recipe. There has to be that secret ingredient that is you.
Yep. No, I agree 100%, Mona. Don't commoditize the small business by being bland.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or generic, or
Yeah.
one of many.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's good stuff. I love the work that you're doing. I think it's interesting and creative, and I really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much for the conversation.
Thank you very much for having me on. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
All right. Well, Mona, I'm going to check in with you again in 4 or 5 months, and we'll see what's cooking then, too.
Okay, great.
All right. Well, thanks
Thank
for
you,
your time.
Emanuel.
Yep, you betcha. Well, that was an important reminder of maintaining brand authenticity, emotional connection, and making sure that you're spending time with some fundamentals around your brand voice and what people get from working with you. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for listening to Marketing in the Age of AI. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Your copy of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI is available at Amazon.com or EmanuelRose.com. You can also connect with Emanuel on LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.